She thought she had everything figured out. But when she was left alone with a baby, she had no idea that 10 years later, everything would change. Now, just as she's finally finding peace, a knock at the door brings the one person she never thought she'd see again, her ex. Will she be able to protect her son from the man who left them, or will her past destroy everything they've worked for? Mia sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the baby in her arms. The small room felt cold, and the weight of the situation hung heavily around her. Liam, barely a month old, had been left with her after everything fell apart. Her partner, the man who promised to build a future with her, was gone. He left with nothing but a note, a few words scribbled hastily on a crumpled piece of paper. "I can't do this, it's too much." The note haunted her as she sat there, the reality of her loneliness settling in deeper. She had no job, no money, and no idea what she was going to do. All she had was Liam, and that felt like both her burden and her salvation. In the weeks that followed, Mia learned how to survive. The days blurred together, each one a fight to stay afloat. She had no choice but to keep moving, even when every part of her wanted to stop. The city felt like a maze, full of faces that didn't notice her. She applied for every job she could find, but the rejections piled up. Every night after Liam fell asleep, Mia sat in silence, wondering if she had made the right choice to keep him. She knew that being a mother wasn't easy, but this was beyond what she had ever imagined. She would have done anything to hear his little giggle or see him smile again, but that wasn't enough to make life easier. Months passed, and something changed. Mia began to feel stronger. She found a job at a local cafe, a small one, barely enough to cover the bills, but it was something. Liam's smile, the way he looked at her as if she was his whole world, became her driving force. As he started to crawl, then walk, Mia's world shifted. Every milestone was a victory for both of them. Slowly, she started to build a routine. She found a sense of stability in the small victories, getting through a full day at work without feeling overwhelmed, paying the rent on time, even cooking dinner without wondering if they'd have enough food for the week. By the time Liam turned 5, Mia had completely transformed. She was no longer the scared, uncertain woman who had been left alone with a newborn. She was confident, determined, and in control of her life. She moved them into a new apartment, one that had a little more space for Liam to run around. The walls were painted with brighter colors, and the windows let in more sunlight. It felt like a fresh start. Mia had come so far, and yet there was always the feeling that something was missing. Every now and then she'd catch herself staring out the window, wondering about the man who left her all those years ago. What had he been thinking? Did he ever think about Liam? Did he ever regret walking away? It wasn't until Liam was 8 that the past came crashing back into her life. One rainy evening, Mia got a letter. The handwriting was familiar, but she hadn't seen it in years. The man who left them had sent it. He wanted to see Liam. He wanted to apologize, to make amends, he said. Mia's heart pounded in her chest. She hadn't thought about him in so long, but now that he was here, everything felt wrong. She couldn't decide if she was angry or relieved. How could he just show up after all these years? How could he think he could walk back into their lives as if nothing had happened? Mia sat with the letter in her hands, her fingers trembling. She couldn't believe it. The next few weeks were filled with quiet tension. Mia thought about the letter constantly, turning it over in her mind. She talked to a few close friends about it, trying to decide what to do. Some said she should let him back in, that he had a right to know his son. But Mia couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. He had walked away once without a second thought. What was different now? Why now? Mia finally decided to confront him. She found his address and wrote him back, telling him that if he wanted to see Liam, he would need to meet her first. He agreed, and they arranged a time to meet at a small cafe. The day of the meeting, Mia felt a mix of emotions. She didn't know if she wanted to punch him or ask him why he'd left them. She hadn't seen him in 10 years, but he still had the power to make her heart race, to make her feel the way she did when they first met. When she walked into the cafe, he was already sitting at a table near the back, his eyes scanning the room. He hadn't changed much, still looked the same. Tall, dark hair, eyes that held something she couldn't quite place. She walked over and sat down, her hands clasped tightly together in her lap. He looked at her with a mixture of surprise and guilt. The silence between them was heavy, thick with the years they had spent apart. Finally he spoke. "I'm sorry, Mia," he said quietly. "I should have never left. I was scared. I thought you'd be better off without me." Mia took a deep breath, her chest tight. "You left us. You walked away without a word. What was I supposed to think? That you'd just come back after all these years and everything would be fine?" "I know I hurt you," he said, his voice low. "But I'm here now. I want to make things right. I want to be part of Liam's life." Mia felt the anger rising in her chest. He had no right to just walk back in like this. She had spent years building a life without him, a life that was good. She had built herself up from the ground, and now he wanted to waltz back in and claim a place in Liam's world. But as she looked at him, she saw something else, a vulnerability, a desperation that she hadn't expected. She wanted to believe him, but could she? Would it even be worth it to let him back in? Her thoughts were racing, her emotions a whirlwind of confusion. Finally, she stood up, the decision made. "I don't think I can let you back in, not like this. You don't get to just walk away and then come back when it's convenient for you." He looked up at her, pain in his eyes. "Mia, please, I'm sorry." But she was already walking out, her heart heavy with the weight of the past. She didn't know if she had made the right choice, but in that moment, she knew she was in control of her life. She had built this life without him, and she wasn't going to let him tear it apart now. Mia didn't tell Liam about the meeting. He was happy. He was thriving. And that was enough for her. But deep down, she knew she had made the right choice. As Liam entered his teenage years, Mia watched him grow into a smart, strong, and independent young man. He was everything she had hoped he would be, and more. One day, 10 years after she had been left alone in that small room with her baby, Mia stood in front of the mirror looking at the woman she had become. She had control now of her life, her career, and most importantly, her future. She had made it on her own, and no one could take that away from her. The past was just that, past, and she was ready to move forward. As she walked out of the house, Liam by her side, she felt something she hadn't in years. Peace. The past no longer had a hold on her. She was in control, and that was all that mattered. Mia's life continued to unfold with its ups and downs, but she had long since learned to handle whatever came her way. The years following her decision to cut ties with her former partner had been filled with challenges, but they also marked the beginning of her true transformation. She had become accustomed to standing on her own 2 feet, handling Liam's needs, while balancing her job and everything else life threw at her. Her job at the cafe had turned into a career. Mia worked hard, earning promotions and slowly climbing the ladder to a management position. She was respected by her colleagues, and while the work was exhausting, it gave her a sense of purpose. Still, something inside her yearned for more. She wanted to do something that truly meant something, not just survive, but thrive. One evening, after a long day of work, Mia sat in the living room of her apartment, flipping through old papers. The faint sound of Liam playing in his room was a comforting reminder of how far they had come. The apartment, though small, had become their sanctuary. It was theirs, filled with memories, love, and a sense of stability that Mia had worked tirelessly to build. But as she glanced through the stack of papers, something caught her eye. It was a letter from a lawyer's office, detailing an inheritance. The letter was dated a few months ago, but Mia hadn't noticed it until now. She was confused. She hadn't expected anything like this. The letter stated that her former partner's family had left a sum of money for Liam, his son, in the event that something happened to him. Mia's stomach twisted. It had been years since she'd heard anything from her ex-partner's family. And here they were, with an inheritance for Liam. The idea that they might still care about him, even after all this time, felt surreal. Mia's mind raced with questions. Why hadn't they contacted her sooner? What did they want? She wondered if this had been part of some last-minute decision to make amends for everything that had happened. She sat on the couch, staring at the letter. The prospect of money was tempting. She could use it to secure a future for Liam, to ensure that he never had to struggle the way she did. But Mia also knew the truth. That money would never erase the years of absence, the hurt, and the abandonment that had shaped her. Her phone buzzed, interrupting her thoughts. It was a message from her friend, Claire. "How's everything going?" the text read. Mia paused for a moment, considering how much to share. She hadn't mentioned the inheritance yet, but the weight of the situation was becoming too much to bear alone. Taking a deep breath, Mia typed back, "Got a letter today from Liam's dad's family. They left him something." She hesitated before adding, "I'm not sure how to feel about it." The phone rang almost immediately. "Mia, are you okay?" Claire asked, concern evident in her voice. "I don't know. I don't know what to do with this," Mia replied, feeling the uncertainty creep in. "I'm proud of everything we've built. But this feels like it changes everything." "You've done an amazing job, Mia. Don't let this change how far you've come," Claire said firmly. "You've given Liam the best life possible. Money won't change that." Mia sighed, leaning back into the couch. She appreciated Claire's words, but the temptation to take the money, to give Liam more than she could ever offer, gnawed at her. The decision weighed heavily on her, and she didn't know if it was right to refuse it. Later that night, after putting Liam to bed, Mia sat at the kitchen table, staring at the letter once again. It seemed almost too easy, too convenient. And deep down, Mia knew that accepting the inheritance wouldn't change the past. It wouldn't give Liam the father he deserved or undo the pain he had been through. The next day, she decided to visit the lawyer's office. She needed to see for herself what was at stake. When she arrived, the lawyer, a man in his mid-40s with a stern yet kind face, handed her a file. "I understand you're uncertain about the inheritance," the lawyer said gently, "but this money is meant for Liam. His father's family wants him to have it, in case anything happens to them. It's a gesture of goodwill." Mia hesitated, her fingers brushing the edge of the file. "I don't know if I can accept it. It feels wrong. I've done everything for Liam on my own. I don't need anyone's charity." The lawyer nodded. "I understand. But this is not about charity. It's about Liam having what's rightfully his. His father's family, despite what happened, wants to make sure he's taken care of." Mia left the lawyer's office feeling even more conflicted than before. She wasn't sure what to do, but the thought of giving Liam a life without financial worry, a life where he didn't have to struggle like she did, was tempting. But at the same time, she couldn't shake the feeling that taking this money might make her feel indebted to a family that hadn't been there when they needed them most. That evening, after Liam had fallen asleep, Mia sat down and made a decision. She couldn't accept the inheritance. She had worked too hard to build their life. She had made it on her own, and Liam had become everything she ever wanted. The money wouldn't make them a family. The next morning, Mia returned to the lawyer's office and politely declined the inheritance. She felt lighter, as though she had made the right choice, even though it wasn't an easy one. As the weeks passed, Mia continued to grow into the person she always knew she could be. She excelled at work, found fulfillment in her career, and began to save for Liam's future. The past was always there, but Mia no longer felt its grip on her. She had learned to stand tall, not because of anyone else's help, but because of her own strength and determination. And then one day, after years of uncertainty, Mia finally realized that it didn't matter what had happened in the past. What mattered was what she and Liam had built together. They were enough. They were a family. And no inheritance, no matter how large, could change that. As Mia's life continued to stabilize, the decisions she made seemed to fall into place with surprising ease. She found peace in the steady rhythm of her daily life, work, home, and caring for Liam. The uncertainty that once clouded her every step began to fade, replaced by a newfound confidence. The world outside might not always be kind, but Mia had learned to stand firm. Liam, now 10 years old, was growing into a smart, curious boy. He was proud of his mom, often bragging to his friends about how hard she worked. He had learned early on that their family didn't need anyone else to make them whole. Mia sometimes caught him staring at the old family photos, asking about his father, but she always knew how to handle it. She'd answer his questions honestly, but with a gentle assurance that their family was everything they needed. One evening, after dinner, as Mia cleaned up the table, Liam asked her something that made her pause. "Mom, do you ever think about Dad?" His voice was small, and Mia could see the curiosity in his eyes, the way he still wondered about the man who had once been part of his life. Mia smiled softly as she wiped down the counter, her mind running through years of memories she had tried to lock away. "Sometimes," she said, her voice steady, but her chest tight. "But I don't think about him the way I used to. We're doing fine without him, aren't we?" Liam nodded, though there was a hint of sadness in his eyes. "Yeah, we are." "But do you think he regrets leaving?" Mia took a deep breath, wiping her hands on the towel, as she thought carefully about her answer. "I don't know, sweetheart. I don't think it matters anymore. What matters is that we're okay. You and I, we've got each other, and that's all we need." Liam seemed satisfied with that answer, but Mia could feel the weight of the question linger in the air. She had never truly allowed herself to dwell on the past for too long, but Liam's growing curiosity made her think. She couldn't help but wonder if his father would ever show up again now that Liam was older. The thought of him coming back into their lives made her heart race in a way she wasn't prepared for. Weeks passed, and the rhythm of Mia's life continued. At work, she was thriving. She had earned the trust of her colleagues and superiors, slowly carving out a name for herself as someone who could get things done. But with success came new challenges. Her boss asked her to take on more responsibilities, and while Mia was more than capable, the pressure of balancing it all started to wear on her. Some days she felt like she was doing it all, holding everything together, but it was starting to feel like too much. One particularly exhausting night after working late, Mia received a phone call. The number was unfamiliar, and at first she hesitated to answer. But then she picked up, her heart skipping a beat when she heard the voice on the other end. "Mia? It's me. It's Mark." Mia's breath caught in her throat. Mark, her ex. The man who had once promised her a future and then disappeared without a trace. The one who had left her alone with a newborn, leaving her to figure out how to survive on her own. "Mia, I need to talk to you." Mark's voice was tense, and Mia could hear the hesitation in his words. "It's about Liam. He's been trying to find me." Mia felt a wave of anger rise within her, mixed with confusion. She had thought she'd closed that chapter of her life. She didn't want to revisit the past, especially not with him. "What do you mean, trying to find you?" she asked, her voice shaking with emotion. "He's been asking questions, Mia. I know I screwed up, but I want to make things right. I want to be there for him. I've thought about him every day, and I'm ready to make amends." His words tumbled out in a rush, but Mia didn't know how to respond. "Why now?" Mia finally managed to ask. "Why show up after all these years?" "I didn't know how to fix things, Mia. I was afraid, and I made the wrong choice. But I'm ready now. I want to be part of his life, if you'll let me." Mia sat down on the couch, feeling the weight of the conversation pressing on her chest. She had spent so many years putting the past behind her, building a life without him. But now, here he was, asking for a second chance, for Liam's sake or for his own. She didn't know what to say. She didn't know if she could let him back into their lives. She had spent so much time protecting Liam from the hurt that Mark had caused them both. Could she really let him come back? Was it fair to Liam? "I'll think about it," Mia said finally, her voice quiet. "But don't expect anything to change overnight. It's been a long time." Mark didn't say anything for a moment, and when he spoke again, his voice was softer. "I understand, but please think about it. I'm not asking for a second chance for me, but for him. He deserves to know me." After the call ended, Mia sat in silence. Her mind was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Part of her wanted to protect Liam from the hurt she knew was coming. Another part of her felt that maybe, just maybe, Liam deserved to know the truth. He deserved to know the man who had once been his father. But Mia had worked so hard to make a life without him, to make sure Liam grew up strong and whole, despite everything that had happened. She had raised him on her own, without Mark. Could she really open that door again? The decision weighed heavily on her, and as much as she tried to push it aside, it wouldn't go away. She thought about Liam's future, about the man he was becoming, and the possibility that he might need closure with his father. Could she deny him that? Was it her place to decide? Mia didn't know the answer, but she knew one thing for sure. Whatever choice she made, she would do it with Liam's best interests at heart. She had always done what was best for him, and that wasn't about to change now. The days that followed the call from Mark were filled with uncertainty. Mia found it difficult to focus at work, the decision weighing on her every waking moment. She couldn't escape the thought of Mark returning, of Liam meeting his father after all these years. Was it even a good idea to let him back in? Would it be good for Liam? Or would it just reopen old wounds, causing pain Mia had worked so hard to avoid? At night, she found herself staring at the ceiling long after Liam had fallen asleep, lost in thought. She thought about the life they had built together, just the two of them, without anyone else to rely on. They were a team, and in many ways they had become stronger because of the absence of Mark. But now Mia couldn't shake the feeling that maybe Liam deserved more. Maybe he deserved to know his father, even if she didn't trust him. Maybe the time had come for Liam to make his own decisions. One evening, Mia sat down with Liam. He had been quieter than usual, and Mia could see that something was on his mind. The conversation from weeks ago still lingered in the air, and she could tell that he hadn't stopped thinking about his father. Mia decided it was time to address it head on. "Liam," she began softly, "there's something I need to tell you." Liam looked up at her, his brow furrowed in curiosity. "What is it, Mom?" "I got a call from your dad," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "He wants to see you. He's been thinking about you a lot." Liam's eyes widened, and for a moment Mia could see the hope and excitement flicker across his face. But then his expression shifted, and the uncertainty took over. "Is he really back? After all this time?" Mia nodded slowly. "Yes, he wants to make things right. He's asking for a chance to be part of your life again." Liam sat back, staring at her, processing the information. Mia could feel the weight of his thoughts, the questions and emotions swirling in his young mind. "What do you think, Mom? Should I meet him?" Mia swallowed hard, her heart racing. She had never been asked this before. Liam's question was simple, but the answer was complicated. "I think it's up to you," she said, trying to keep her voice calm. "You have every right to know your father, but you need to decide if it's something you really want. Just know that I'll be here, no matter what." Liam was quiet for a long time. Mia could see the gears turning in his head as he weighed the options. Finally he spoke, his voice quiet but resolute. "I want to meet him, Mom. I think I need to, but I'm scared." Mia's heart broke at his words. She reached out, pulling him into a hug, and whispered, "I'm scared too, Liam. But we'll take this one step at a time, okay? You don't have to do anything you're not ready for." Liam nodded, clinging to her. "I trust you, Mom." In that moment, Mia realized that no matter how uncertain or difficult the situation was, the most important thing was that they had each other. Liam was strong, and Mia had raised him to be capable of handling whatever came his way. She could only hope that the meeting with Mark would go smoothly, that it wouldn't disrupt the balance they had worked so hard to maintain. Over the next few days, Mia reached out to Mark and arranged a meeting. She insisted that it would be in a neutral location, somewhere public, where they could all feel safe. It wasn't just about Liam meeting his father. It was about Mia finding a way to let go of the past, to allow Liam to make his own decisions, even if it meant confronting her own fears. When the day of the meeting arrived, Mia felt a knot form in her stomach. She had no idea what to expect. Would Mark show up and act like nothing had ever happened? Would he be remorseful, or would the years of absence have hardened him into someone she didn't recognize? And what about Liam? How would he react? There was no handbook for this, no guide to navigating the emotions of a 10-year-old who had been raised without a father. They arrived at the cafe early, Mia and Liam sitting at a table near the window, their hands clasped together. Mia kept her eyes on the door, waiting for Mark to walk in. She had always thought she was prepared for this moment, but now that it was happening, she wasn't so sure. Finally, Mark appeared in the doorway. He was different than she remembered, older, wearier. His eyes held a hint of sadness, but also a deep sense of determination. He walked toward them slowly, his movements hesitant, unsure of what to expect. "Mia," he said softly, as he reached the table. "Liam." Mia nodded, not quite sure what to say. She didn't know how to react, how to let this man back into her life after everything he had put them through. Liam, on the other hand, looked at Mark with wide eyes, his heart racing. He didn't know whether to hug him, yell at him, or just sit quietly. But instead, he stood up and held out his hand. "Hi, Dad," he said, his voice steady, though there was a hint of uncertainty behind it. Mark stared at Liam for a long moment, as if he couldn't believe what was happening. Then, slowly, he reached out and shook his son's hand. "It's good to meet you, son." The words hung in the air between them, thick with unspoken emotion. Mia watched them both, feeling the past flood back, memories of a life she had worked so hard to forget. But as she saw the way Liam looked at his father, the hope in his eyes, Mia realized something important. This was Liam's decision now. She couldn't protect him from everything, and maybe, just maybe, it was time for him to decide who he wanted to be in his life. She took a deep breath and smiled, though it was tinged with sadness. "Let's talk," she said softly, as she sat back in her chair. The past wasn't over, but it was time to face it together, as a family. The conversation started slowly, with an awkwardness that filled the small cafe. Mia sat back, watching the two of them, Mark and Liam, as they cautiously navigated the space between them. It felt surreal, like a dream she wasn't quite ready to wake up from. Liam's gaze never left Mark's face, studying him, trying to reconcile the man before him with the image he had built in his mind over the years. Mark, for his part, seemed tentative, unsure of how to bridge the gap he had left so many years ago. Mia felt the weight of silence pressed down on the table. "So, Liam," Mark started, his voice rough with nerves, "I know it's been a long time, but I've been thinking about you every day. I know I can't make up for what I did, but I want to be here for you now, if you'll let me." Liam shifted in his seat, glancing over at Mia as if seeking her permission. Mia's heart twisted at the vulnerability in his eyes. She nodded slightly, encouraging him without saying a word. Liam looked back at Mark, his voice quiet but steady. "You weren't here, though. I don't know you. I don't know what to think." Mark's face darkened with regret. "I know, son, and I'm sorry. I can't change the past, but I want to be part of your life now. You're older now, and you deserve to know who I am. I don't expect anything from you, but I want to be there for you if you'll let me." Mia could see that Liam was torn, his emotions a whirlwind. He wanted to believe Mark, wanted to connect with him, but there was so much hurt in the air that it felt impossible. Mia knew this moment was pivotal, not just for Liam, but for herself as well. She had spent so many years shielding Liam from the pain of abandonment, making sure he never felt like he was missing something. Now she had to trust that Liam would make the decision that was right for him, no matter how hard it was for her to let go of that control. Liam sat back in his chair, his hands fidgeting in his lap. "I don't know if I can just forgive you. It's not that simple," he admitted, his voice cracking slightly. Mark nodded, looking down at the table, clearly affected by his son's words. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I just want the chance to try. I know I don't deserve it, but I want to be here, if you'll let me." The words hit Mia harder than she had anticipated. She hadn't thought about forgiveness in years, at least not in the context of Mark. She had long ago moved past the anger, the confusion, and the resentment. She had focused only on providing a stable life for Liam. But hearing Mark speak, hearing him admit his mistakes, stirred something inside her, a deep, unhealed part of her that she thought she had buried long ago. Mia took a deep breath, breaking the silence. "We've done this on our own, Mark. Liam and I, we've built our lives, and we've found our way. But if Liam wants to get to know you, that's his choice. We'll take it one step at a time." Mark looked up at her, his eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and sorrow. "Thank you, Mia. I know I don't deserve it, but I appreciate that." Liam, still unsure, spoke again. "So what happens now? Do we just try to be a family?" Mark paused, thinking carefully before he responded. "No, son. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not about being a family right away. It's about getting to know each other, slowly, step by step. I'm not here to rush things. I'm here to be a part of your life, however that looks." Mia's heart ached as she watched them. She had always thought that if Mark ever came back, it would be her decision. But now, seeing Liam's uncertainty, the decision was no longer just hers to make. It was Liam's future, his relationship with Mark. Mia had to trust that whatever path Liam chose, they would face it together. "I think I'd like to get to know you too," Liam said quietly, his voice carrying a hint of nervous hope. "But I don't know how." Mark smiled, the relief evident on his face. "That's okay, Liam. We'll take it slow. One day at a time, all right?" Liam nodded, and for the first time, there was a slight easing of the tension between them. The air wasn't as thick with uncertainty as it had been moments ago. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was the beginning of something new, something that Mia hadn't expected but could accept. Mia watched them, her thoughts racing. She had always been the one in control, the one who made the decisions, who kept everything together. But now, she felt a shift. She realized that she couldn't control everything. Liam was growing up, making his own choices, and it was time for her to let go, at least a little. She had to trust him. Over the next few weeks, the dynamic slowly began to shift. Mark made an effort, showing up when he said he would, listening to Liam's questions and offering pieces of himself. He didn't try to force anything. He knew it would take time for Liam to trust him again, but he was patient. He took things slow, respecting the boundaries Mia had set, while trying to prove that he could be there, that he could do better this time. Mia, too, took small steps. She allowed herself to watch the relationship between Mark and Liam grow, cautiously optimistic, but still on guard. She knew it would take time for them to truly rebuild something that had been broken. But she couldn't deny that seeing Liam and Mark together, even in the smallest moments, made her heart ache with a mixture of relief and fear. For the first time in years, Mia wasn't sure what the future held. She didn't have all the answers, and she didn't need them. The only thing she could control now was how she reacted, how she supported Liam through this new chapter of his life. And as she sat back and watched Liam laugh with Mark one evening, something she never thought would happen, She realized that she had done what she set out to do. She had given Liam the space to find his own way. She could trust him to make the right decisions, just as she had trusted herself to do the same all those years ago. And in that moment, Mia felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. As the weeks turned into months, the relationship between Liam and Mark slowly but surely began to blossom. Mia watched from the sidelines, her heart a mixture of pride and unease. She couldn't deny that seeing Liam open up to his father was a good thing, but a small part of her was still wary. Mark had hurt them both, and while he was making efforts to prove himself, Mia couldn't forget the years of absence, the promises broken. Trust, after all, wasn't something easily rebuilt. But Liam was different. He was accepting, even when he didn't quite know what to expect. It was clear that he wanted to connect with the father he had spent his childhood hearing about, but never truly knowing. For the first time in years, Mia allowed herself to let go of her grip on their lives. She had been the protector, the provider, the one who kept everything together, but now she was seeing Liam begin to make his own decisions, form his own understanding of the world. One Saturday afternoon, as Mia was cleaning up the house, Liam and Mark decided to spend the day together. They went to the local park, throwing around a football and just talking, something so simple, yet so meaningful. Mia didn't know exactly what they talked about, but when Liam came home, his face was lit up with excitement. "Mom, you won't believe it." Liam burst into the house, his voice full of energy. "Dad taught me how to throw a perfect spiral. I'm really good at it now. He says I've got the best arm he's ever seen." Mia smiled, her heart swelling with a quiet pride. Liam was finally getting the chance to experience what he'd missed all those years, the connection to his father. She watched him as he raced to his room, eager to practice his newfound skill. For a moment, Mia sat down on the couch, allowing herself a rare moment of peace. But even as she felt content in that moment, doubts began to creep in. Was this really going to work? Was Mark truly committed, or was he just trying to smooth things over, to make up for the years of neglect with grand gestures? She knew that Liam's forgiveness couldn't be rushed, and the love between them would take time to grow. The fear that Mark might hurt them again lingered in the back of her mind. That evening, Mark came by to drop Liam off. Mia greeted him at the door with a polite smile, but she could tell that he was trying hard to be more than just an occasional visitor in their lives. There was an earnestness to him, a sincerity that wasn't there the first time he left. "I think he's really happy," Mark said, his voice quiet as he glanced into the living room, where Liam was eagerly practicing his throws. "It means a lot to me that he wants to spend time with me. I don't take that for granted, Mia." Mia looked at him, her thoughts a swirl of conflicting emotions. Part of her wanted to believe him, to trust that he was finally ready to be the father Liam deserved. But another part of her, perhaps the part that had spent years doing everything alone, was hesitant. She had made it this far on her own, without him. Could she really let him back into their lives completely? "He's excited about all this," Mia said, nodding toward Liam. "I can see that. He's wanted this for a long time." Mark looked at her, a flicker of pain in his eyes. "I know. I regret not being here for him all these years. I won't make excuses for that. But I'm here now, and I want to be the dad he deserves. I won't let him down again." The sincerity in his voice made Mia pause. She had heard these words from him before, but there was something different now, something real. Maybe it was the way he looked at Liam, the tenderness in his eyes when he spoke about him. Or maybe it was because Mia herself had changed so much. She had grown stronger, more resilient, more capable of seeing the possibility of forgiveness, even if it was hard to fully embrace. "I want to believe you, Mark," Mia said softly, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "But I can't just forget everything that happened. It's not that simple." Mark nodded, understanding the weight of her words. "I know, and I'm not asking you to forget. I'm just asking for a chance to show you that I can be a part of his life. And yours, if you'll let me. Mia didn't respond immediately. She could feel the tension in the air, the unspoken questions hanging between them. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I'll let you try, Mark, for Liam, but I need to see that you're really in this for the long haul. I won't let him get hurt again. Mark's expression softened, and for the first time in a long while, Mia saw the man she had once loved, the man she had hoped he could be. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. And maybe that was enough for now. As Mark left, Mia stood in the doorway watching him walk away. She felt a mix of emotions, relief, fear, uncertainty. But as she turned back into the house, her eyes found Liam, still practicing his throws in the living room. He was smiling, lost in the moment, completely at ease. And in that moment, Mia knew that whatever happened in the future, she would protect him. She would make sure that no matter who entered their lives, they would never lose the bond they shared. Mia went to the kitchen, allowing herself to take a deep breath. The road ahead was still uncertain, and she knew that things wouldn't be easy. But for the first time in years, she felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this second chance was the start of something better for all of them. The days that followed felt like a strange new beginning for Mia. She had always thought that once she made a decision, it was final. But now everything seemed fluid, like the past wasn't something that could be neatly tucked away, but something that could still shape the future. She had opened a door, one that had been firmly closed for years, and now she had to figure out how to live with the consequences. But seeing Liam and Mark together more often began to ease some of her fears. Slowly, she saw the changes in Liam, his quiet excitement about seeing his father, the pride in his eyes when he told Mia stories about the things Mark taught him. Mia knew, though, that trust wasn't something that could be built overnight. There were still moments where she felt a sharp pang in her chest when she thought about all the lost years. How had Mark thought it was okay to walk away? But then she would look at Liam and see how much he was growing, and she would push those feelings aside. This wasn't about her anymore. It was about Liam and the chance he had to know his father. It was a Saturday afternoon when Mark called Mia with an unexpected proposal. Mia, I was thinking maybe it would be good for Liam and me to spend some more time together, maybe take a trip, just the two of us. I know it might seem fast, but I want to do something special for him. Mia paused, her first instinct to say no, to keep them close, to stay in control. But then she remembered the way Liam had been looking at her recently, full of hope, eager to experience the world through Mark's eyes. It was a simple trip, a weekend getaway to a nearby cabin, and Mia could sense that it was more than just a father trying to make up for lost time. It was his way of proving that he was truly here for Liam, and that he wasn't just a fleeting presence. Okay, Mia said, surprising herself. But only if you promise to keep me updated. I don't want any surprises. Mark agreed immediately, relief clear in his voice. I promise. I'll take care of everything. As the day of the trip approached, Mia felt a mixture of emotions. She couldn't help but be protective, unsure if she was doing the right thing by letting Liam go with Mark. But as she packed his bag, made sure he had everything he needed, and reminded him to be careful, she saw the excitement in his eyes. This was a moment he had been waiting for, and Mia had to trust that he was ready for it. The morning they left, Liam hugged her tightly, his excitement palpable. I'm going to have the best time, Mom. It'll be just like the stories you tell me. I'll make sure to send you pictures, I promise. Mia kissed the top of his head, fighting back the lump in her throat. Have fun, sweetheart. And remember, you can call me anytime. I love you. I love you too, Mom. As the car pulled away, Mia stood in the doorway, watching them disappear down the street. For a moment, she felt a rush of loneliness, an emptiness that she hadn't realized was there. It was quiet without Liam, and the house felt larger, more still. But deep down, Mia knew this was important. Liam was learning to trust his father, and Mia was learning to trust him. For the first time in years, Mia allowed herself to take a step back and focus on herself. She spent the weekend doing things she hadn't had time for in ages, catching up on work, meeting friends for coffee, and even enjoying a quiet evening alone, watching a movie without any interruptions. It was a small taste of the life she had once known, the life before all the chaos of raising a child alone. But no matter how much she enjoyed the peace, Mia missed Liam. She missed his energy, his questions, and his warmth. When she checked her phone and saw the message from Mark, a photo of Liam standing proudly in front of the cabin, smiling with a fishing rod in hand, a sense of relief washed over her. They were okay. She was okay. That night, after Liam had texted her again with more pictures, this time of the two of them by a campfire, Mia felt a new sense of calm settle over her. She had made the right decision. This time, it wasn't about what had happened in the past. It was about the future, about what Liam needed, and about what he could give himself. The next few days passed quickly, and when Liam returned, he was full of stories. He talked nonstop about the trip, about the fishing, the hikes, and the conversations he'd had with Mark. Mia listened intently, her heart swelling with pride and relief. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Liam was growing, and he was doing it with the support of both his mother and his father, even if it was still a work in progress. Mia sat with him that evening, listening to his excitement, and something inside her shifted. Maybe it wasn't just about the trips or the grand gestures. It was the little moments, the ones where trust was built quietly and slowly over time. She had spent so many years thinking she had to do everything alone, but now she saw that it wasn't about control. It was about partnership, about finding balance between the past and the future, between letting go and holding on. And so Mia began to allow herself to relax, to accept the changes that were happening in their lives. The future was still uncertain, but she was starting to see it not as something to fear, but something to embrace. She had raised Liam with everything she had, love, strength, and determination. And now Liam was beginning to find his own way, with both his mother and his father by his side. Mia didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, she wasn't afraid. She had given Liam the chance to know his father, and that was the best gift she could give him. Now all she could do was watch him grow, support him, and trust him to find his path, just as she had found hers. As the months passed, things continued to shift, and Mia could see the changes in both Liam and herself. Liam's bond with Mark grew stronger, and while it wasn't always easy, they found a rhythm together. He would spend weekends with his father, and the rest of the time, Mia would continue to be the constant in his life. At times, it felt like an odd balancing act, trying to navigate their new normal. But she realized that this wasn't about returning to how things had been before. It was about moving forward, together, but in new ways. One evening, after Liam returned from a weekend with Mark, Mia noticed something different in him. He seemed more at ease, more mature. There was a quiet confidence in his voice when he spoke, and his eyes held a depth that hadn't been there before. It wasn't just about fishing trips or weekends away with his father. Liam was starting to feel secure in who he was, knowing that both his parents cared about him in different ways. "Mom," Liam said as they sat at the kitchen table, "Mark and I talked about a lot of things this weekend, about life, you know?" He hesitated for a moment, then continued. "He told me about when he was younger and how he made mistakes. I think he wants to make things right, for both of us." Mia felt a pang in her chest at Liam's words, but she pushed it down. The past would always be there, but Liam's future was something she could influence. "That's good, sweetheart," she said softly. "I'm glad you're talking. It's important to understand where people come from, even when things aren't perfect." Liam nodded, his gaze focused on the table for a moment before he looked up at her. "I think it's going to take time, but I'm okay with it. I know I've got you." and I know I have him too, if I want it. Mia smiled, a lump forming in her throat. This was the moment she had been hoping for, Liam. Understanding that he could have both, that he didn't have to choose. The fear that he would feel torn between her and Mark slowly began to dissolve. Liam was growing up, and he was handling it in his own way, with a wisdom far beyond his years. As the days went on, Mia and Mark's interactions became more natural. They weren't friends, not yet, but they were learning how to co-parent, how to put their differences aside for Liam's sake. There were still awkward moments, small tensions, and times when Mia felt herself slipping into the role of the protector once again. But she was slowly learning to let go. One evening, Mark stopped by to pick up Liam for a weekend trip they had planned. As he walked in, Mia felt the usual knot form in her stomach, but she tried to push it away. Mark was here for Liam, and that was all that mattered. "Hey, Mia," Mark greeted her with a slight smile. "I was thinking about the holidays. Maybe this year we could all do something together. I know it's a lot to ask, but I think it might be good for Liam, for all of us." Mia froze for a moment, the suggestion surprising her. She had always kept the holidays just between her and Liam. It had been their time, their traditions. And the idea of sharing that with Mark felt strange, even though part of her knew it could be a positive step forward. "I don't know," Mia said carefully, her voice uncertain. "I've always done the holidays on my own with Liam. It's been our thing." She looked up at him, seeing the sincerity in his eyes. "But I'll think about it. It might be a good idea for Liam." Mark nodded, not pushing further, but Mia could see the relief in his face. "Thanks, Mia. I'm just trying to make things right. I'm not asking for anything too much. Just the chance to be there, you know." Mia met his gaze, the weight of the conversation heavy between them. "I know," she said quietly. "We'll figure it out, one step at a time." As Mark left with Liam for their weekend, Mia stood at the door for a moment, watching them drive away. She could feel the change in the air. The future was still uncertain, but it wasn't as terrifying as it once was. Liam was thriving, and as much as it pained her to admit it, part of that was because of Mark's presence in his life. The man who had once left them behind was now trying to be a father, and that was all Mia could ever hope for. She would always be there for Liam, always be his protector, but now she was learning to share that role, to allow Mark to be a part of his life in a way that worked for both of them. Mia went back into the house feeling an unfamiliar peace settle over her. It wasn't perfect, and it never would be, but maybe that was okay. She had raised Liam to be strong, to be compassionate, and to understand the complexities of life. And now as she looked ahead, she realized that all she had ever wanted for him was to be happy, to be whole. It wasn't about controlling every part of his life anymore. It was about giving him the tools to navigate it on his own. And in that moment, Mia realized that, for the first time in a long time, she was finally ready to let go, just a little bit, for Liam's sake and for her own. The holidays were just around the corner, and the thought of spending them together as a family, Mark included, lingered in Mia's mind. The decision had been made. She would try. Not because it felt natural, but because it was the right thing for Liam. He was ready for this, and despite all the years of distance, Mia knew that trying to create new memories would be part of helping him find peace with his past. Mia found herself reflecting on all the years she had spent alone, fiercely protecting their small world, thinking that it was all they would need. But now she was learning that maybe, just maybe, there was room for more. As Christmas approached, Mia worked hard to keep things light. She decorated the house with Liam, the same way they had always done. But this year, there was a new energy in the air. The excitement wasn't just about the tree, the ornaments, or the stockings. They were building something new. They were preparing to share their special time with someone else, someone who hadn't been there before. And though it felt strange, Mia could see the importance of it. For Liam, It was a chance to feel whole. For Mia, it was an opportunity to embrace change, even if it was uncomfortable. On Christmas Eve, Mark showed up with a bottle of wine and a warm smile, holding up a gift wrapped in bright red paper. "For Liam," he said, handing it over. "I hope he likes it." Liam tore into the paper, his eyes lighting up as he pulled out a new set of hockey gear, something he had wanted for months. "Thanks, Dad," he said, throwing his arms around Mark's neck. Mia watched from the kitchen, a tight knot in her chest. She wasn't sure what to expect, how she would feel about this new dynamic, but seeing the genuine joy on Liam's face made her realize that she had made the right decision. This was for him. This wasn't about her discomfort or her fears. It was about Liam, having both his parents present, and learning that love wasn't always perfect, but it could still be meaningful. Later that night, after they had eaten and exchanged stories, Mark stood up and offered a toast. "I know I haven't been the best, but I'm here now. I'm not asking for anything, but I just want you both to know how much you mean to me. This feels like the beginning of something real." Mia felt a shift in her heart, an unexpected warmth. She had spent so many years angry and afraid of this moment, of this exact situation, but now, seeing them both together, seeing how happy Liam was, she understood that sometimes the past couldn't be erased. It could only be accepted, forgiven, and built upon. The evening ended with the three of them sitting by the fire, laughing at old stories, while Mia quietly realized that this wasn't so bad. It was just different. And maybe, just maybe, different was good. As the new year began, the transition in their family dynamic started to feel less like an adjustment and more like a new chapter. Mia and Mark weren't friends, but they were learning to coexist in a way that worked for Liam, for themselves, and even for their shared history. Liam continued to thrive in this new setup, navigating his relationship with Mark in his own way, but always with a sense of security that Mia had worked so hard to provide, and now she had to admit she was learning that she could share that security. Mia found herself having more conversations with Mark, not about the past, but about Liam's future. They talked about school, about his interests, and about what Liam wanted to pursue as he got older. It was strange, almost surreal, but there was a quiet understanding between them now. They didn't have to go over old wounds. They didn't have to talk about the mistakes they had both made. They could simply discuss Liam's growth and the small moments that shaped him, and that was enough. One afternoon, Mia was sitting at the kitchen table when Mark called. "Mia, I've been thinking," he started. "Liam's been talking about playing in the junior hockey league this year. What do you think?" Mia's heart leaped in her chest. Hockey had always been a passion of Liam's, and this could be a big step for him, one that could provide him with new opportunities and a sense of independence. "I think it's a great idea," she said, smiling. "He's really into it, and it could be good for him. He's growing up so fast." Mark chuckled softly. "He really is. I'm glad we're on the same page." After the call ended, Mia sat back in her chair, thinking about how far they had come. It hadn't been easy, and there were still moments of tension, still moments when she wasn't sure if she was making the right choices. But there was something about their conversations now, about the way they were able to communicate openly about Liam, that made Mia believe they were moving in the right direction. They were learning to navigate their roles in Liam's life, and slowly, they were both learning how to be parents together in their own way. A few weeks later, as the weather grew warmer, Mia found herself attending one of Liam's hockey games. Mark was there too, sitting beside her in the bleachers. The game had started, and Mia watched as Liam skated across the ice, his face lit up with concentration and excitement. It was one of those moments when time seemed to slow down, when everything in her world felt in place. She had never imagined herself sitting here, sharing these moments with Mark. They had come so far from where they had started, from the pain and the distrust, to this, a quiet peace between them. Liam was thriving, and that was all that mattered. He had the chance to experience the kind of relationship he had always dreamed of with his father, while also knowing that Mia was his rock, his constant. After the game, Mark turned to her, a soft smile on his face. "He's really good, isn't he?" Mia smiled, her eyes never leaving Liam. "He's amazing. I couldn't be more proud of him." There was a brief pause, and Mark cleared his throat. "Mia, I know things will never be perfect, but I want you to know that I'm here, for both of you. I'll do whatever it takes to make sure Liam has everything he needs." Mia looked at him, surprised by the sincerity in his voice. She had heard him say words like this before, but something felt different now. Maybe it was the way he said it, so calm, so sure. Or maybe it was because, for the first time, Mia was ready to believe him. "I know," she said softly, "and I'm glad you're here for him." It wasn't about forgiveness, not anymore. It was about building something new. And for the first time, Mia realized that their family didn't need to be perfect to be strong. It just needed to be real. As the months continued to pass, Mia began to notice subtle changes in herself. The old fears, the lingering doubts, were still there at times, but they no longer controlled her. She was no longer living in the shadow of what had happened in the past. She had learned to let go bit by bit, allowing herself the freedom to enjoy the present moment with Liam and with Mark in their own capacity. Mia had always thought she had to be everything to Liam, his mother, his protector, his provider. But as he grew older, she saw him start to stand on his own 2 feet, carving out his path. And she could see that Mark was there, helping him along the way too. They had found their balance, slowly, one step at a time. On a quiet evening, as Mia and Liam sat together in the living room, Liam turned to her with a thoughtful expression. "You know, Mom," he said slowly, "I'm glad Dad came back. I'm glad we all get along now." Mia smiled softly, her heart full. "I'm glad too, sweetheart." In that moment, she realized something important. Her job had never been about controlling Liam's future or trying to make everything perfect. It had always been about giving him the tools he needed to create a life for himself. And now she could see that he was doing just that. As summer began to unfold, Mia found herself reflecting on the journey she had been on, the journey of letting go, of allowing her family to grow and change in ways she had once thought impossible. She had spent so many years thinking that she could protect Liam from everything, that she could keep their world small and safe. But as Liam grew older, as he began to form his own relationships, Mia realized that her role was no longer about shielding him from pain. It was about teaching him how to handle it, how to navigate the complexities of life with strength and grace. One evening, as the sun set over the horizon, Mia sat on the porch, her feet propped up on the railing as she watched Liam play with a group of friends in the yard. The sounds of their laughter filled the air, and for a moment, Mia allowed herself to just be. She had been through so much pain, so many sleepless nights, and so many fears. But now, as she sat there watching her son, she realized that it had all been worth it. Every sacrifice, every struggle, it had all led to this moment where Liam was thriving, happy, and healthy. Mark had continued to show up, and though their relationship remained distant, Mia knew that he was committed to being there for Liam. She had accepted that some things couldn't be forced, some relationships couldn't be rushed. But with time, Mark had proven that he was capable of showing up for their son, and that, in itself, was enough. Mia leaned back, her thoughts drifting back to the difficult decisions she had made, the nights spent questioning whether she was doing the right thing. But as Liam ran past her, calling out her name, she realized that the doubt had faded away. The bond they shared between mother and son was unbreakable, and no matter how things evolved with Mark or anyone else, that would always be the constant. "Mom," Liam shouted, running up to the porch, "we're going to the park. Want to come?" Mia smiled warmly, nodding. "I think I'll stay here for now, but you have fun, and don't stay out too late." Liam grinned and nodded, taking off with his friends. As Mia watched him go, she felt a deep sense of peace. She had done it. She had raised him to be confident, compassionate, and strong. Now it was his turn to build the future. The next few months seemed to fly by, and Mia couldn't help but marvel at how much her life had transformed. The anxiety she once carried about Liam's future, about Mark's role in their lives, about whether she was doing enough, had settled into a quiet confidence. Mia had learned that it was okay to let go, to trust that things would work out, and to stop trying to control every detail of Liam's life. He was growing up, and he was doing it with a sense of independence, supported by both his parents in their own ways. Mark had continued to be a steady presence, never pushing too hard, but always showing up for Liam. Their relationship was still a work in progress, but Mia could see the efforts Mark was making. The small moments, the late-night talks, the weekends spent together, the shared pride when Liam succeeded, were beginning to add up. Mia knew that Mark might never be the perfect father, but he was trying, and that was more than she could have hoped for when they first started this journey. One afternoon, as Mia picked up Liam from school, he ran toward her with excitement in his eyes. "Guess what, Mom?" he said, breathless. "I made the junior hockey team. They want me to play goalie." Mia's heart swelled with pride. It was a huge accomplishment for Liam, and she could see how much it meant to him. "That's amazing, sweetheart," she said, wrapping him in a hug. "I'm so proud of you." Liam grinned from ear to ear. "And guess what? Dad's coming to the first game. He promised he'd be there." Mia's smile faltered for just a moment, but she quickly pushed the feeling aside. She wasn't jealous or upset. She was proud. Liam had a family that cared for him, a family that might look different from the one she had imagined years ago, but it was a family nonetheless. "Good," Mia said, her voice steady. "He should be there. You've worked hard for this, and you deserve to have everyone cheering you on." As Liam talked about the upcoming game, Mia felt a quiet sense of contentment wash over her. She had spent so many years carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders, thinking that everything was her responsibility. But now, as she watched Liam step into his own, she realized that the future wasn't something to control. It was something to be embraced, with all its uncertainty and joy. The next few weeks brought the first hockey game, and true to his word, Mark was there, sitting in the stands with a proud smile on his face. Mia watched them both, Liam out on the ice, giving it his all, and Mark cheering from the sidelines. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't the family she had once envisioned, but it was theirs. And for the first time, Mia felt at peace with that. She knew that their journey wasn't over, that there would always be challenges, moments of doubt, and growing pains. But for now, as she watched Liam thrive and grow, she understood that sometimes the best things in life weren't perfect. They were messy and complicated and sometimes difficult, but they were real. And that was enough. As the seasons changed and time moved forward, Mia continued to watch Liam grow into the young man she had always hoped he would be. He was confident, kind, and full of ambition, qualities that Mia had worked so hard to nurture even in the toughest of times. She had raised him to be strong, to know his worth, and to value the love he had, whether it came from one parent or two. And now she could see that all of those lessons were paying off. Mark remained a steady presence in their lives, and though they never became close friends, there was a mutual respect between him and Mia. He had come a long way from the man who had left them in the beginning. Mark was present for Liam in ways that mattered most. He showed up when it counted, even when it wasn't easy. And that was enough for Mia. She no longer needed anything more from him. What mattered was that Liam felt supported, loved, and had the opportunity to have both his parents in his life, even if in different ways. One afternoon, after a long day of work, Mia found herself sitting on the back porch, sipping her coffee as she watched the sunset. Liam was at a friend's house, and for the first time in a while the house felt empty, peaceful. She had come to embrace the quiet moments. They had once terrified her, the stillness of a house without constant activity, but now it was a relief. Her phone buzzed, and she smiled when she saw the message from Mark. Liam made the team. We're so proud of him. I'm lucky to be a part of his life. Mia read the message twice, the weight of the words settling in. The truth was, she had never expected things to turn out the way they had. When Mark had first left them, she had thought that was the end, that they would have to build a life without him, and she was okay with that. She didn't need anyone else, she told herself. But here they were, years later, learning how to share in the joy of raising their son, learning how to move past their mistakes and find a new kind of family. Mia responded with a simple, heartfelt message. We all are. He's lucky to have you in his life. As the evening drew to a close and the stars began to twinkle in the sky, Mia realized that this was the family she had always hoped for, not the perfect picture book version she had once imagined, but one that was real, messy, complicated, full of ups and downs, but full of love. And as she thought about everything they had been through, the struggles, the heartbreak, the uncertainty, she knew that she had done her best. She had given Liam everything she could, and now he was standing on his own, ready to take on the world. For the first time in years, Mia felt a deep sense of peace. She had done it. She had raised a strong, independent son who knew what love was and who would grow up with the strength to face whatever life threw his way. She didn't need to control everything anymore. She didn't need to carry the weight alone. Liam had a father who cared, a mother who loved him fiercely, and a future full of possibilities. And in that moment, as she sat on the porch, watching the world quiet down around her, Mia knew that she had given him the best gift she could ever offer, a life full of love, forgiveness, and the freedom to choose his own path. The future was his, and she was ready to watch him embrace it. Together with both of them, his past and his present, his mother and father, he would be okay. And that was all that mattered.